Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with another installment of Mutant Monday, and this time we'll be looking at this past week's installment or portions of Ten of Swords. That being Hellions number 6, Mutants number 13, and Cable number 5. So we'll start off with part 6, since we left off at part 5 last week. In Hellions, number 6. And let me just say, Hellions is little by little becoming one of my favorite books and my favorite current X books, and we'll get to why in a little while, or in a little bit. So we begin with a quote from Nightcrawler. "Remember always that our mutations are born from pain. When we train our gifts on our enemies, we turn our sorrow, our past, our battered souls. We train our sorrow, our past, our battered souls. Let us be wary of using these sacred things for war." So we begin with the resurrection of Empath shortly before everything that happened with Rockslide and Richter. And yeah, he's a jerk. No big ceremony for him, and he's basically kind of asked to, go out the back way. And so later on at the Quiet Council, the contest is being discussed by what members of the council are present, as Apocalypse, Jean, and Storm are each absent. Apocalypse wounded and or going after his own sword. Jean being with Cable and Cyclops at the peak. More on that later. And Storm, no doubt, in Wakanda, getting her sword. But Sinister has an idea. The idea is kind of, why not have his team of Hellions go into Otherworld and track down the swords of Arakko themselves, so that the champions of Arakko don't have their swords. Ergo, they can't, with the exception of Solom, who does definitely have his sword. Then they can't compete. No swords. Oh well. Damn. And it's actually not a bad plan. The only thing that Xavier's biggest problem is sending other mutants to Otherworld, which understandable because it does appear that dying in Underworld is a permanent death. But otherwise, it's not a bad plan. Of course, Sinister has no intention of leading the team there. No, he simply means to direct them, hey, go do this. However, Exodus thinks that Sinister should be leading the charge. And after insulting Polaris to Magneto, the rest of the council does vote that, yes, it does seem like an excellent idea to have Sinister lead the charge himself. So the we see what the base of the Hellion Seating Theater, also known as Purgatory. They've been briefed on the plan. They're going over what to do. Um, and Orphan Maker has the cloning process kind of sort of explained to him. Sinister has cloned himself. The idea being he intends to send a clone to lead the Hellions into battle. And well, he and the clone decide they're going to just make the decision as to which of the two will lead this mission through the noble contest. Rock, paper, scissors. The next day, the Hellions meet at the Avalon Gate, and Sinister arrives. Explaining that he will be leading them into enemy territory. Explaining that jockeying for his affection is encouraged, and favoritism will be rampant and arbitrary. And so they talk with Jamie Braddock. And gifts are exchanged. Sinister gets a horse. Jamie gets Sinister's cape. But the horse has been stolen. Empath has to be bribed into helping. What he wants is for Greycrow, who he realized shot and killed him, to be his pet. So yeah, he becomes Greycrow's. So Greycrow becomes Empath's pet. And Empath does save the day. The team gets horses to ride, except for Greycrow, who's on foot. And Sinister gets a new cape. So, yeah. Not as dashing a cape as he normally has, but yes, a cape. And the Hellions ride off into Otherworld in search of the Otherworld blood swords. Which brings us to Chapter 7 in New Mutants number 13. Now, among those prophesied to be the sword bearers of Krakoa were Ileana Rasputin and Doug Ramsey. In fact, at the end of Ten of Swords creation, Ileana showed up, planted her sword in the circle, and said, "Boom! Here I am." However, well, there is the whole thing of young Mr. Ramsey, the voice of Krakoa. The issue begins with Magic giving Cyclops something with sit rep and kind of explaining that we need Cable here, like ASAP. He's one of the people. He's supposed to be one of our sword bearers, so he kind of needs to get his butt down here. Meanwhile, Cypher and Warlock discuss the part they had to play. And the fact that he isn't exactly a warrior or a fighter in general leads Magic to train Cypher in swordplay. This also leads to a write-up on the Soul Sword. But basically, everyone's trying to find a way to get somebody else to wield the Warlock Blade because Cypher is the voice of Krakoa. In the way that Krakoa speaks, Krakoa speaks in a way that no one can understand, and Cypher can understand any language. So, yeah. His training continues with Ileana though Krakoa does at one point step in, figure Ileana's gone too far. And while Doug does when he wasn't doing too badly this most in the training, Ileana does point out that they're going up against the Children of Apocalypse or worse, people who warriors who wielded a blade before they spoke their first words. So not bad is not nearly good enough. The next person to offer to help find a replacement for Doug is Exodus, figuring well. Exodus' solution is to kill Cypher. After all, resurrections are on hold at the moment, so. But both the Island and Warlock dispute this. We also get a write-up on the Warlock sword. And then finally, Krakoa takes over Mondo. Apparently, Krakoa kind of agrees with Exodus. And so, Krakoa suggests that placing Doug in exile until the whole thing's over. It won't be pleasant, but Doug will be safe. And so, but he does talk to Krakoa and says, I know you're scared, and I'm scared too. You have to let me do this. And he continues his practicing with Ileana, and when it's all said and done, she tells him that if he raises his sword against anyone on another world, it'll be the last thing he ever does. And there isn't a damn thing he can do to stop it. And that's where the issue ends, with Doug taking his place in the circle. Which brings us to Chapter 8 in Cable number 5. So where we left off with Cable, Cyclops, and Jean Grey were aboard the Peak, the headquarters of, sword. Cable uses his sword to power the station up. But Jean, Cable, and Cyclops explore the peak. Magic once again gets in touch with Cyclops and Cable because they're in the contest. And Cyclops and Cable discover something in one of the science labs. However, Jean discovers a survivor aboard. And he tells her what happened. He shows her what happened, and then opens the airlock and has himself jettisoned in space. So Jean then gets in touch with Cable and Cyclops and tells them, don't open any doors in the science lab because, well, something got loose and murdered everyone on the station. So they arrive, they find out it's called the Viscora, and so the three of them fight off the Viscora. And so Cable realizes if he turns the power off by pulling the sword out of the generator, well, that might actually help. And it does. So, we also get a data recorder transmission from the peak. And a write-up on the Light of Galdor. As Cable arrives and takes his place in the circle. With while Cyclops and Magic have a telepathic conversation, presumably facilitated by Jean. Who is also privy to the conversation in general. But part of it also is that Jean wants Ileana to keep an eye on Nathan during the contest. They also plan to push through the telepathic barriers of Otherworld to keep an eye on things. And that is where the issue ends. And that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.